you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth. Have a seat. And first of all, if you feel comfortable, we'd appreciate it if you could remove your mask because it'll be easier to hear you. I'll keep my mask on so that we have as much protection. And we're going to test out the microphone and how it works with you. So if you could state your full name, spelling each of your names.
First name, Charles Mcmillian, C-H-A-R-L-E-S. Last name, Mcmillian, capital M-C-M-I-L-L-I-A-N.
Thank you. Ms. Aldridge.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
I'm okay.
Thank you for being here. I'm going to start with some questions about your background, and then we'll move on from there, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
So could you tell the jury how old you are?
61 years old,
And how far did you go in school?
3rd grade.
And what city do you live in?
Here in Hennepin County.
And you're in Hennepin County. Are you in Minneapolis?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm going to ask you some questions about Memorial Day, May 25th of last year. Do you live in an area close to Cup Foods?
Yes, I do.
And that evening on May 25th, were you driving by that area?
Yes, I was.
And what kind of car do you drive?
I drive a 2006 Dodge Caravan Blue.
Okay, is that a van?
Yes, ma'am.
So, when you were in the area of 38th in Chicago, did something draw your attention?
Yes, it did.
What was that? What did you see?
I was at the red light going south, and at the time I was going to go east on the 38. That was to my left, and when I got there to make a left turn, I see an interaction with a car with a man and with a police officer.
So I'm going to show you a map. If we could put up Exhibit 1, please. All right, so you were talking about where you were. Using this map that's up on the screen, could you just describe, you can actually use your, there's a little pen there, stylus pen, you can use that to sort of show the jury on the screen where you were and where you were headed.
Hard for me to see because I'm old. I can describe it better by saying because I can't hardly see what's going on.
Okay.
I was on the corner of 38 in Chicago.
All right.
To make a left to go east towards 42nd and Hiawatha. So I was right on the corner of 38 in Chicago.
So you were headed east on 38th Street, is that right?
Yes, which would be right here.
Okay, perfect. And you just made a mark at that intersection there where in the direction you were headed, which was eastbound, is that right?
Yes.
All right. And when you were headed down 38th, you said you saw an interaction with somebody and some police officers. What did you see at that point?
Well, when I made the left, I seen a blue. There was a Mercedes-Benz truck on the right side with a police officer standing at the door. So I automatically made a right turn and pulled over.
And what made you decide to stop and pull over?
Being nosy, just being nosy. I'm in the neighborhood. I'm a nosy person.
Did you want to know what was going on?
Yes, being nosy. That's what it was.
So when you first approached that area, you said an officer standing next to a blue Mercedes truck.
With the door open.
With the door open. Did you see what the officer was doing at that point?
No, not at the time.
Okay. So you said you decided you wanted to pull over, see what was going on.
Get out, yes.
All right. So did you drive up the street a little bit and then park?
Immediate park, got out.
Okay. So when you got out, what'd you do?
I walked across I went to the other side of the street.
All right. And would that be the Cup Food side of the street?
Yes.
Okay. So what'd you do on the other side of the street?
I engaged in what was going on by watching.
Okay, so what did you see from the Cup Food side of the street?
Basically, I seen the officer, you know, was asking Mr. Floyd to get out the truck. And shortly after they got Mr. Floyd out the truck and they walked over to the sidewalk where they allowed, you know, just walked over to the sidewalk behind Mr. Floyd's truck.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there. We'll just break it down a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
You said you saw the officers getting Mr. Floyd out of the truck, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you say Mr. Floyd, did you know who he was at the time?
No, ma'am.
Did you later learn that that man was George Floyd?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you saw, how many officers at that time did you see interacting with Mr. Floyd?
I want to say one at the time, then another one walked over to help him.
Okay, so tell the jury about that. What did you see the first officer do, and then what happened next? So we'll start from that point.
Well, when I got out my truck and started watching, I basically just seen the officer asking Mr. Floyd to get out. And from that point on, I don't want to say, the other officer walked up to the truck where the other officer was. The other officer was on the other side, so he walked up to where the officer trying to get Mr. Floyd out of the truck. I said, and I heard a couple words, I don't know what it was, and they finally got Mr. Floyd out of the truck, handcuffed and walked him down.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there. So first you saw one officer interacting on the driver's side of the car
Yes.
with Mr. Floyd, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you said there was another officer who was on the passenger side initially of that blue Mercedes truck, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then I think you're describing that eventually that officer on the passenger side came over to assist on the driver's side, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you said that those officers got Mr. Floyd handcuffed. Did you see that happen?
No, I didn't. No, I don't not recall it.
So what did you see while you were standing on the Cup Food side of the street happen at the next to that SUV?
Well, after that, I seen, because I was looking away, but then when I turned back and looked, I did see Mr. Floyd handcuffed. Then they started to walk him down the sidewalk.
So you didn't see the very moment he was handcuffed,
No, ma'am.
but you
No.
did see that he ended up in handcuffs.
Yes, ma'am.
And were you looking around you, but not focused the entire time on, you know, what the exact moment was that he was handcuffed?
No, I
Okay.
didn't.
So you said that he was handcuffed, and then you said they walked him across the street. So can you describe or show on the map what you saw happen next? All right, so if you could just put either a line or a mark where you saw them walking. Can we enlarge it? Is that possible?
It was on the right-hand side, but I can't see whatever restaurant is on the right side.
Okay, so let's take off the enlarged portion just for a second there.
It was a little small restaurant on my right-hand side behind the truck.
Okay,
That's what I'm looking for, and I can't see it.
all right. Would that be the Dragon Walk restaurant?
Yes, a little restaurant on the corner.
Okay, so was that where the officers that you saw walked with Mr. Floyd at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you said he was in handcuffs. Was Mr. Floyd walking across the street?
Yes, he was walking up the sidewalk with them.
And then what happened?
He said something about he said something. I can't quote right what he said, but whatever he said, they let him sit down.
Okay, and were you watching that part of the interaction where he was sitting down?
Yes, ma'am.
And where were you? Were you still on the
I was still on the Cub pool side.
Okay, and I'm going to try not to talk over you, but if we could just wait for the question and then you can answer, and then I'll try not to
Yes, ma'am.
try to do the
Not
same
a problem. Thank you.
thing. Okay, just because we got someone taking it all down. All right, so you are on the Cup Food side. You see them sit him down at the Dragon Walk. Could you hear what was going on in terms of the whole conversation?
No, ma'am.
Okay, but you were watching what was going on. Is that
Yes.
right? All
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
Did they move again after that?
Yes, ma'am. They helped him guide up off the sidewalk.
Okay. Okay. And then after he got up off the sidewalk, where did they go?
They went north across the street at the red light, which would be going north through the red light.
So did they head toward Cup Foods at that point?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And where were you? Did you stay where you were, or did you follow?
I just went on down the sidewalk almost to the front edge of the Cup Food,
Okay.
to the stoplight.
And I'm going to put up, well, can you take this down, please? Thank you. Did we show you some pictures and videos from that day prior to your testimony in court today? Did you see some videos and pictures on a previous date when we met before?
Yes, I did.
All right. I'm going to put up, just for you but not for the jury, what we've marked as Exhibit 38, please. All right. Do you see that in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recognize yourself in that picture?
Yes, I do.
And is that what you looked like on May 25th and what you were
Yes.
wearing? All right. We would offer Exhibit 38.
All right, 38 is received.
All right. And we will publish that to the jury. All right. So now the jury is getting to see that's what you were wearing. That's what you looked like on May 25th. Is that right?
Yes.
And so it looks like you're walking down the sidewalk. You're talking about getting closer. Did you get closer at that point?
Yes, I was getting closer.
Okay. We can take that down, please. So after you see the officers walk Mr. Floyd toward the Cup Foods and you're getting closer, what do you see then?
I see them come through the intersection with Mr. Floyd, and I was just standing and observing like I was doing. And when they came through the intersection, they went on to the car with him.
And when you say the car, what car are you referring to?
Squad car.
Okay. So they were taking Mr. Floyd to the squad car at that point? Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And was he still handcuffed at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
And was Mr. Floyd walking with those officers?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it just those two officers at that point?
Yes.
Did you know either of those two officers?
No.
Okay. And then did you continue to observe after they got to that squad car?
Yes, I did.
And what did you see then?
Just standing and observing them, get him into the car, and as they get him in the car, I'm just paying attention like I always was.
And was Mr. Floyd saying anything at that point in time?
Yes, he was.
And were you engaging in a conversation with Mr. Floyd as well?
Yes, I was.
So tell the jury just a little bit about what was going on in that moment.
At the time I was engaged with Mr. Floyd, that the officer was, trying to get him in the car and everything, talking to him, and I was telling Mr. Floyd, just ply with him, get on in the car because you can't win, or something to that nature.
Okay. And before, as you were watching Mr. Floyd walk up to the squad car, he was seated down and then he was walked across the street. Any of those moments in time, did you see Mr. Floyd fighting or being violent with the officers from the moment he was taken out of the car until he was sat down and then walked across the street?
No.
Okay. And then you're describing what was going on, and he was handcuffed, you described that whole time, is that right?
Yes.
And then you're talking about them trying to get him into the car. Did we previously show you a video that showed your position and what you were watching, as well as what one of the officers' body cameras showed was going on at that moment? Did you see video of that on a previous date?
Yes.
And did that show accurately and fairly what you saw, as well as what you heard and what was going on with respect to Mr. Floyd at the squad car? Did that show what was happening?
Yes.
Okay. And just so I'm clearly describing it to you. I know you saw a number of videos. There was one that had a view from one of the officer's body cameras combined with a surveillance camera that was showing where you were standing. And that's what we've marked as Exhibit 39. And you said that that video showed what you were doing and what you saw and heard. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, I'd offer Exhibit 39.
39 is received.
And we will publish that now. And does that show you walking by? Can we just pause it for one moment? Before we play, the top screen, does that show where you're standing next to the squad car?
Yes.
And can you just point yourself out on that top screen? And then on the other video that's embedded within what's shown here, that shows the officer and Mr. Floyd at the car. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We will clear that, and then we will continue to play. Thank you.
I don't want to win. I'm claustrophobic. You ain't gonna win. I'm claustrophobic. I got anxiety. I don't want to do nothing to them. Man, I'm scared as fuck, man.
Okay. You made a mistake somewhere.
When I start breathing, it's gonna go off on me, man. Okay. Let me count to three. And I'm going in.
Pause it right there, please. All right, we're at 18:07. Now, just to sort of summarize what's happened thus far, are you having a conversation with Mr. Floyd at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's going on in that conversation?
It's going on a conversation that I'm watching, Mr. Floyd saying that he clasped over to the back seat of the police car. And I'm trying to get him to understand that when you make a mistake, once they get you a cup, it's no certain thing as being clasped over. You're going to go with them. And I was trying to get him to go.
Okay, and you were saying, is it your voice saying things like you can't win?
Yes, ma'am.
And why were you saying that?
Because I have had interaction with officers myself, and I understand once you get in the cup, you can't win. You're done.
Okay.
It's just the way I have looked at it.
So were you trying to just help him to...
Make the situation easy.
Got it. So you were trying to make the situation easier. There were some comments about, I'm claustrophobic, and then I believe there was a response. Were you having a conversation with Mr. Floyd at that point in time?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you feel like he was hearing you and understanding what you were saying?
Yes, ma'am.
And like you said, you were just trying to make it easier and help. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at some point, again, we have this stopped at 18:07. Did some other officers arrive?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you know any of the other officers who arrived?
Yes, ma'am.
And who did you know?
Mr. Chauvin right there.
And if you can point to him on the screen, you're pointing there. So you've made a mark with the arrow pointing to Mr. Chauvin. How did you know Mr. Chauvin?
5 days prior to this happening, I pulled up on the squad car somewhere in South Minneapolis, and I seen Mr. Chauvin, and I told him, like I tell all officers, at the end of the day, you go home to your family safe, and let the next person go home to their family safe.
So you had just met him in the community a few days prior, is that right?
I had seen him in the community prior to them, but the day I pulled up on him, I gave him the recommendation of what I said.
Okay, so you had seen him 5 days or so prior, had a conversation with him, but you had known him in the community before that as well, is that right?
I seen him running through the community, not knowing it.
Okay, so you recognized him as an officer in the community?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I apologize. I'll try to slow down. You try to slow down. We'll both take a breath. And then we'll
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm going to try not to talk over you. Do my best. All right. Okay. So I'm going to let the video play, and then we can pause it for some follow-up. So go ahead. Thank you.
You can't win. I'm not trying to win. I'll get on the ground, anything. I'll get in the car. He know it. He know it too, Mr. Officer. Y'all hear me? Don't do me like that, man.
In the car.
Okay, can I talk to you, please?
If you get in this car, we can talk.
I am claustrophobic. I'm
hearing you, but
claustrophobic,
you're not
man.
working with me.
God, I'm claustrophobic, man.
Get in the car. Get in the car.
Get me in the front, please.
No, you're not getting in the
I'm
front.
claustrophobic, so I was
Get in the car.
Okay, man, okay. I'm not a bad guy, man.
Get in the car.
I'm not a bad guy. Man. What's my trouble? Please, officer. Please.
Sit.
Please.
Take a seat.
Please, man. Please. No,
Take a seat.
I can't choke. I can't breathe, officer. Please. Please.
Fine.
My wrist, man. Please. I can't. And I let it go. I'm on the ground. I'm on the ground, yo. I'm on the ground. I'm going down. I'm going down.
Get in the squad.
I'm going down. I'm not going to leave, man.
You won't die of a heart attack, right?
I don't can't breathe.
Get in the car.
I can't go, man. I can't breathe.
Take a seat.
Please, man. Please listen to me.
Is he going to jail?
Listen to me.
He's under arrest right now for forgery.
I tell you.
Can we figure out what's going on?
For what? Take him out. For what? Please, man. I can't fucking breathe.
Here, come on out.
Look at you. Thank you. Thank you.
Get him on the ground. Yeah, on the ground. On the ground.
My wrist. Right.
You got your restraint. Hobble.
I can't breathe.
Okay.
I can't breathe.
Grab that. Get him.
Jesus. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Thank you. I can't breathe.
Stop moving.
Mama.
Yeah,
Mama.
it's in the,
Mama.
one of the front pouches
Mama.
on my right side bag.
Mama.
You're the arrest guy.
All right. Oh my God.
It's time to go to jail.
I can't believe this. I can't believe this. I can't believe this. I can't believe this, man.
Can I stop it right here, please?
Mama, look.
Mr. McMillian, do you need a minute?
Oh my.
Just take your time. Just know when you're ready.
We'll just give you a moment, Mr. McMillian. I'm not sure if there's water for you as well. Oh, if you need a break to get some water, let me know, and we can take a break. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you.
You okay?
Yeah.
I know that this is difficult. Can you just explain sort of what you're feeling in this moment?
I feel helpless.